Hi, I'm going to do a quick review of Doctor Who, the Halloween Apocalypse, the first episode of Doctor Who The Flux, Series 13. My general feeling is it's okay. I'd say it's probably one of the better Chibnall episodes, although obviously there's not a lot of competition. So anyone who doesn't know, Series 13 is going to be a continuous story spread over 6 episodes. And from the looks of it, it's going to be throwing in loads of old Doctor Who adversaries, despite originally Chibbers saying that it was going to be a kind of a new thing and he wasn't going to rely on that. But clearly he's had to fall back on that. Quick disclaimer, not a fan of this iteration of Doctor Who, not a fan of Jody as the Doctor. I'm going to just do this as a stream of consciousness because I just can't structure it the way I'd probably want to. I'll just kind of talk about it as I go and raise points as I go. It starts with the Doctor and Yaz hanging upside down in this kind of really bad CGI death trap situation. And oh my God, this bit is so stupid. The dialogue is terrible and it's just ridiculous. I mean, they somehow managed to magically flip themselves from being upside down. It's very reminiscent of the episode where the Doctor managed to kick her sonic screwdriver somehow out of her pocket, or rather flip it out of her pocket and into her hand above her head. It's that sort of level of gravity-defying nonsense. However, there's one thing in that scene I did like, and that's they basically escape on the thing that's suspending them. And they're flying through the sky. They crash into the TARDIS, which is lying on its side, and they hit a net, which is a trampoline that's been set up against the console, part of the console room, and then flop back onto a bed. Now, the reason I like that is because it gave a sense of the Doctor having control of the situation and almost like she knew where it was going. So that felt quite Doctorish to me. I can't remember exactly the order of these things. We get a scene where it's back in the 1800s and a couple of old gentlemen are arguing about the fact they're digging tunnels under Liverpool, and one of them is saying how nobody understands his design, and he says, if I explained it to you, you wouldn't understand it. Clearly this is a setup for later in the series. Quick prediction, it's probably going to be the MacGuffin that solves the problem. And that's it. It just ends. And there's a lot of that in this episode. There's just lots of things dropped in and then forgotten about. And I appreciate it's kind of setting up for the series, but it's a very clunky and disjointed way of doing it. It's literally kind of like, oh, here's this, and it's gone again, with very little explanation, very little going on. I'm not totally sure this is going to pay off quite the way people might hope. We get introduced to Dan, John Bishop's character, who is basically just John Bishop. He's a likeable, kind, generous, beautiful soul who gives food to the poor but doesn't take any himself, despite the fact he's got nothing in the house. Weirdly, it's a little bit twee because he's kind of a saint, and I don't find that much of a character. And then the person who put the Doctor and Yaz in the death trap turns up, kidnaps John Bishop's character and takes him off planet. And the Doctor's pursuing this person because this person knows something about the division. So unfortunately, we've got a tie into the Timeless Child crap. I'm never going to be happy with that. Just before that, they bump into someone called Claire. Now, the person who plays Claire, I think, is really good. From the instant she came on the screen, she had presence. And you got a real sense of... presence is just the best word. She kind of acted everybody else out of this episode. And then she mentions to the Doctor that she's met her before, then leaves the Doctor, and a bit later in the episode bumps into a weeping angel. And she knows what the weeping angel is by the way she reacts. And again, she sells it really well, although the bit is slightly over-egged. She sells it really well. I'd forgotten to mention the big bad, or Skeletor, if you like. His name is the Swarm, and apparently he's been imprisoned since the dawn of the universe. And he beams a vision of himself escaping and murdering his guards, who are also clearly part of the division. Although they do point out in that conversation that it might be exaggerated how old he is. But the Doctor doesn't say anything, because the Doctor never says anything. And then they go to rescue John Bishop, but she's not really interested in rescuing John Bishop because she wants to get information from the space dog, who was the person who put them in the trap and who kidnapped John Bishop, about the division, because apparently the space dog knows something about the division. And it turns out the space dog's plan isn't to invade Earth, it's to save all the humans, and he's brought 7 billion ships with him of his other people to each of them to rescue an individual human. And I want you to consider just for a second the idea of them having 7 billion spaceships, each individually taking a human from Earth to save them. Just leave that one with you for a second. I mean, the whole of that storyline is utterly ridiculous. We're then introduced to Vinder, and that's a fine bit. You don't find anything out about him. He's okay in what he does. He's been put in this space station. He says it's beautiful where he is, but, you know, and he's the first person to see the flux, which is kind of a massive cloud that is disintegrating the universe, if you like. And he escapes, and that's kind of his bit done. Within this, you've seen this couple in the Arctic who smash a beacon and then go back to bed. And then the big bad turns up, kills him and turns her into his sister, or rather frees her, because it seems like she was always his sister. Don't know what these two are all about, but they're kind of set up as really, really bad, evil people. And it gives the impression that he is in control of the flux. Whether he is, we don't know, but that's the impression you get. And it kind of ends with all the space dogs forming a shield around the Earth. The intention is apparently their ships can withstand the flux, which seems bizarre since the flux can destroy entire universes and planets and solar systems, but a bunch of dog ships can help it. But that's the idea. And meanwhile, John Bishop's kind of girlfriend, for want of a better phrase, or potential girlfriend, then gets kidnapped in a very weird way by the Swarm's sister and taken to basically a quarry. You know, it's kind of just a big wet area in a dip, so it's a quarry. Typical Doctor Who quarries. And then the Doctor is in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS basically looks like it's dying because doors keep appearing everywhere. And I quite like that as well. I quite like the idea of, you know, they go through the TARDIS door and they don't walk into where they're supposed to. And the last time they walk into the TARDIS, the door's in the floor, so they're walking out of the floor, which I think is quite cool. And, you know, they're giving the impression that the TARDIS is falling apart. Then they become aware of the flux and it starts coming towards them. It moves towards them. The Doctor kind of tries to get away. She zaps it with some time vortex energy, which does absolutely nothing. And the episode ends with the space dog ships creating a seal around the Earth and the Doctor flying towards it with the flux flying towards them, and all the doors on the TARDIS fly open. Visually, it is stunning. For obviously for a TV series, it's not Marvel Avengers quality, but it's not bad. Claire was good. The bad guy had a decent sense of menace, even though really he's kind of a bit one-dimensional right now. Something he also said was that he and the Doctor had been battling for eons or something, which is a bit worrying because, again, that leads into the timeless child nonsense. And also kind of doesn't make that much sense if he was there since the dawn of the universe, because the Doctor had arrived as a child after the dawn of the universe. So I presumably, as one of the guards said, that was an exaggeration. But yeah, there's lots of kind of little seeds being sown for what's going to come, and hopefully it will all be resolved. But it's just a bit messy and a bit choppy, and things are thrown in. It's not coherent. You see, the thing about a six-parter is you've still got to have each individual part work. You can't just kind of throw in their mystery boxes, to want of a better phrase. Thank you, Nerdrotic, for that one. Because it's not coherent. You end up with this kind of chaotic, let's show this bit, let's show this bit, let's show this bit. I forgot about the Sontarans, which just randomly appear, because I think they're going to be in the next episode, and have this, I think it's supposed to be funny. It was a bit cringy conversation, and they've gone retro with the look of the Sontarans, which I find, again, a bit weird, because the reason they look like they did was because they didn't have the budget to make them look better. So the idea of making them look like they did back then, I just don't understand. The biggest problem for me, which is always the biggest problem with this iteration of Doctor Who, is Jody and the companions. Now, Jody and Yaz apparently have formed some sort of relationship since the last episode after Ryan and Graham left. But we don't see the relationship develop. All of a sudden, there's kind of it was nice to see Yaz shouting back at the Doctor, given that everything up to that point had been blind adoration from Yaz and general indifference from the Doctor. But it felt like there's a basic air of disdain between them. You know, the Doctor kind of feels like she's ungrateful and is not really that interested in her still. And she's just really kind of moody. Oh, and also she's become an absolute genius. Somehow she's miraculously able to use technology in ways she should not be able to do it. But yeah, it's just the script for the interactions there. And John Bishop's, the script for him is not much better. They all sound like got the same voice, all make the same jokes. You know, it feels at times, as many people have said from the previous series, like everybody's words are interchangeable. It doesn't sound like it's an individual person speaking. You know, if the Doctor could be saying the same thing that Yaz is saying and it wouldn't seem out of place. It's just that, and the acting is just not good. I'm sure Jodie's a great actress. I'm not sure she is. I don't think she is. I think she's just a bog standard support actress, and she's fine. But I've seen her in multiple things, and I didn't even remember she was in them. It was only when I did a search and I discovered that she was in Attack the Block. I was like, oh, she was in Attack the Block, okay. And then she was in an episode of Black Mirror. I hadn't remembered her being in any of the, as it being her as being in these things. And I don't think she's got the chops for this role. I don't think she's got that extra thing that you need. Certainly hasn't got the thing you need to be a lead actress, and I don't think she's got what it takes to be the Doctor. I don't think she understands the role properly, and I don't think it's been written particularly well that helps her. Yaz's character is as one-dimensional as it was before. They've kind of changed her a bit, but there's still nothing there. Obviously, it's the first episode. Some more may develop, but this whole episode was at breakneck speed. You know, throwing things in, kind of lots of flashes, bangs, and shiny lights, but not a lot of substance, I found. So yeah, so it was okay, I think, is the best way of putting it. As I say, there were elements that were good, and it was probably one of the better Chibber's episodes. But I suppose there are a couple of moments where Jodie almost seemed Doctor-like, but she just... It's the script and the jokes, and there's just a whole infantile nature to it. And I know people will always say, oh, it's made for kids. Like, no, Doctor Who's family viewing. Having watched it since John Pertwee's era, it was never infantile. It really wasn't. I mean, I got to a point in the Tom Baker era where I switched off because it just became so esoteric at my age that I kind of started to check out. As a child of the 70s, maybe misty-eyed, children's programmes didn't pander to children. They didn't talk down to them. Certainly not Doctor Who. The idea of hiding behind the sofa was very real, and I'm not sure if it is the case now. I'm not a kid, I'm not that age anymore. But apart from the occasional villain, like, say, the Weeping Angels, I don't necessarily think it is. So yeah, so I'm apparently lots of people like this episode from the forum that I'm on. But I just thought it was okay, an average episode, which isn't bad for most, which isn't bad compared to a lot of the others. I say not helped by leaning into the Timeless Child stuff, which I hate. It's a mess and chaotic, and I guess we'll see. It might well be when we get further through the episodes, it starts making some coherent sense. But each episode has to be judged on its own merits. And there's a natural or more organic way you can introduce other elements that pay off later, like Russell did, and to a lesser degree Moffat did. You plant seeds, you put things in there, but this is just like, there's a dump of information. This is this person. I'm not going to tell you everything, but this is this person. This is this person. This is this person. Oh, there's somebody else. But we're not going to tell you what either of those things are. And yeah, I'm going to see how it goes, but I'm not going to be surprised if it's not a car crash, because Chibbers just isn't great at this job. And I'm afraid for me, Jody just isn't the Doctor. She may have a moment, she may surprise me. I don't think so. Anyway, I'll end it there because I'm starting to ramble and I could go on about the Doctor in a general term, and I don't want to do that. So here is the shameless plug for Marked by myself, Andy Radbourne, which is available through Indiegogo, and the link is down below in the description. Check it out, see what you think, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Peace out.